Throughout media's history, mythological elements have made up the framework of many hit films and best-selling series. Some of the best motion pictures follow an ancient mythological blueprint or structure a story around fabled legendary archetypes. One of such examples is the HBO fantasy political drama series Game of Thrones. This show is an adaptation of George R.R. Martin's unfinished novel series A Song of Ice and Fire. The TV show, while absolutely teeming with characters, far-off settings, and story arcs, is remarkably a simplified version of the expansive world-building of Martin's books. The show takes many different turns that result in wildly different outcomes from where the books are seemingly headed, and there are multiple reasons why that is. The most obvious of all is that the book series is not yet done. For this reason, the creators of the show had to take creative liberties outside of the source material to complete the story. With this in mind, and to create less confusion, I won't be using the book series as a reference. Today I'll solely be analyzing the TV show and focusing on one particular character whose story follows a quite heroic mythological theme: Jon Snow. Heroes are an archetypal figure that are widely familiar throughout ancient storytelling. Joseph Campbell is a hero with 1,000 faces, as well as class lectures have outlined a series of events that are commonplace among hero stories told all over the world. From ancient narratives like the Odyssey and Heracles to modern stories we know and love today, like Star Wars, Hunger Games, and The Hobbit, there's a familiar trajectory that the protagonist must experience, resulting in a transformative journey that involves miraculous circumstances, overcoming trials and challenges, and ultimately coming out the other side with a newfound gift or perspective. The traditional heroic journey follows a specific narrative structure with 9 major stages that unfold throughout our hero's life. Our typical hero starts off with an unusual or miraculous birth of sorts. Oftentimes there'll be conflict or trouble arisen, resulting in the child being hidden in some fashion. They may be sheltered from society or given an anonymous identity that they themselves may not even be aware of. In childhood, the hero may show signs of divinity or distinction that separates them from others. I mean, how many stories do we see in modern films of a protagonist that was otherized as a child for simply being different? Additionally, we'll see a period of withdrawal and preparation followed by conquests or challenges that our hero must overcome. Commonly, you'll see the hero receive some form of divine aid that is often unsolicited. Our hero must make a descent into the underworld, where he must face his greatest fears. This doesn't necessarily have to be taken literally, as it could be a metaphorical or psychological undertaking. The final elements of the hero's journey are death, resurrection, and what's known as apotheosis, a subject's ascension to a divine status. Death can be a metaphorical or psychological endeavor as well, but it's not uncommon to see the physical death of the hero in some stories. When it seems that all is lost, death begets rebirth, renewing our hero to achieve victory. Finally, our hero is rewarded or boosted to an elevated rank that was once unobtainable. The hero gains recognition for their good deeds, the underdog becomes the top dog, the common-born hero becomes an honorary nobleman. Through generations of stories passed down through time, heroes have captivated the hearts of audiences worldwide, and their journeys have evolved over time to what we know today. Heroes are timeless, and their selfless acts for the greater good are often the central theme to their stories, making this archetype a truly unique yet familiar character we can all resonate with. If you're gonna ruin my take, then you're going to be a part of it. This is the culprit that keeps ruining my takes. So if you hear some scratching at the door, it's this guy. Say hello, Sterling. Before we break down our hero's life story, I need to include some context for clarity. Jon Snow's story is one of many various story arcs throughout Game of Thrones' 8 seasons. Though many of the storylines seem to intertwine, Jon is isolated and distanced from all the other events you see up until the last few seasons. At first, his role is seemingly quite small when compared to the major plot lines that first capture our attention, but over time that role grows, and it becomes essential to the story's grand scheme. It's because of this that we're able to separate Jon from a lot of the rest of the story, but there's still a whole world of outside elements that affect our hero. Jon Snow was born as Aegon Targaryen, of his mother Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen, noble parents who married in secret during the War of Robert's Rebellion. This rebellion resulted in the end of the Targaryen dynasty and family lineage, at least as far as anyone knew. His father Rhaegar died in battle, and his mother died in childbirth earth as her brother Ned Stark discovered her at the end of her life in the Tower of Joy. As she laid in her deathbed, Lyanna passed her son off to her brother, making him promise to protect her son, as she knew as much as anyone that he would be killed if anyone discovered his true Targaryen identity. Ned, an honorable man of his word, brought the newborn baby home from the ward, guised as his bastard son, with the alias Jon Snow. As Jon grew up in the ancestral home of Winterfell with his Stark half-siblings, he was never made aware of his true identity. He always viewed himself as an illegitimate son of a noble lord, growing up with his father's 5 true-born children, one of whom is a notable character that assists Jon later on in the story. His name is Bran Stark. Bran undergoes his own story arc throughout the series' development to become a powerful and wise figure known as the Three-Eyed Raven, a green seer with magical abilities who can see events from the past and from faraway places. Bran has a unique ability as a warg that allows him to place his consciousness into another physical being, direwolves, crows, and even other humans. This information will become more useful later on as we dive into Jon's heroic events. Another outside element that we have to take into consideration is the White Walkers and the Army of the Dead. White Walkers are, in a nutshell, undead warlords of the North who kill any living person in their path. Their victims turn into whites, essentially frozen zombies, who then join the White Walkers and a massive, ever-growing army of undead soldiers. These White Walkers are the main big bad of the entire series, whom our protagonist must face off against in the final series. This army is synonymous with death, and their ultimate goal is to exterminate life as we know it, bringing on the fabled Long Night. Jon often lamented about being different as a child. He's perceived as the underdog of the family, and therefore is treated differently than the other children, especially by Ned's wife Catelyn, who resents him, seeing him as the embodiment of her husband's feigned adultery. He grew up despising his bastard status, wishing nothing more than to be a true-born son among the children he grew up with. Here we see the trend taking off, an unusual birth of a hidden child that develops signs of being different. There are actually a lot of examples in the second event in Jon's upbringing that make him stand out. It's said that Jon looks more like his father than any of his true-born kids, who physically take after their mother's side. There's a particular sequence in the pilot episode where Ned, Jon, and 2 of the Stark children stumble upon a dead direwolf with 5 still living pups. They manage to talk their father into keeping the pups, as the direwolf is a symbol of House Stark, and there is one for each Stark child. As they're walking away, Jon hears the whimpering of one more. As he investigates, he finds one more direwolf pup, white as snow with white eyes, different from the others and all his own, which he names Ghost. This sequence is a quintessential example of our second event taking shape, prominently placing Jon in a unique position among his surroundings. As Jon comes to adolescence, he makes the decision to join his uncle Benjen to the Wall to become a member of the Night's Watch, an age-old military order that guards a massive ice wall, separating Westeros from what lies north of it. Night's Watch brothers take their vows for life and leave their previous lives, lands, and titles behind. They lose the families they once knew for a brand new one, Brothers in Black. This is Jon's period of withdrawal and preparation, where he's faced with hard lessons about himself and the world. He gains a broader perspective about the livelihoods of those less privileged than him, as well as the Night's Watch itself. But most importantly, he learned many a lesson about leadership, progressing from a naive boy to a man of the Night's Watch. When Jon first settles into his new life, he's disappointed to discover the reality that the Night's Watch isn't as grand and noble as it once was, but rather a grim, cold life sentence with criminals, social outcasts, and illegitimate sons with nowhere else to go. His privilege is essentially checked when he's confronted with the reality that even though he was raised a bastard, he was a bastard of a noble house that took care of him and gave him proper training, further setting him apart as different from his brothers. Over time, he overcomes this hard truth and learns humility, aiding in training new men in combat, earning their trust and companionship. After saving Lord Commander Mormont from a White, he earns enough recognition that he's ordered on a ranging party to find out what happened to the previous rangers who've gone missing. This is one of many big quests and difficult challenges that Jon must face throughout his story, and it is here where we once again see Jon's metamorphosis from a boy to a man. On this ranging, Jon becomes separated from his brothers after stumbling upon a wildling camp and taking a prisoner, who tricks him into an ambush of wildlings, a primitive and violent group of people who reside north of the Wall. Jon Snow is taken hostage and carried off to a wildling camp. During this time, he gets to know the wildling or free folk community, acting as a turncloak so they will keep him alive. From here, he gains their trust just enough for them to set him off with a team of free folk where he's met with more challenges to overcome. Like Heracles and his 12 labors, Jon is met with a series of challenges, each harder than the next, of which he must conquer. After many challenges, Jon is finally able to escape the free folk and return to the Night's Watch, only after receiving significant aid from his little brother, Bran Stark. When the free folk discover that Jon is spying for the Night's Watch, they attack him. At this point, Bran, warged into the body of his direwolf Summer, facilitates Jon's escape. While very lucky for Jon, this is a very intentional element of the story, because our hero receives unbidden aid from a supernatural source. Similarly to Athena helping Odysseus on his voyage home to Ithaca, Jon is able to navigate home with Bran's help and minimal injuries. After some time passes on the Wall, Jon manages to earn the title of the new Lord Commander, gaining authority over the Wall and the men who protect it. Now in command and with the ever-growing threat of the White Walkers to the north, Jon takes a team of brothers beyond the Wall to Hardhome, a village inhabited by the free folk in an effort to establish a truce. At this point in time, the Army of the Dead is becoming a prevalent villain. Jon knows if he doesn't find peace with the free folk, he'll be forced to defend against them after the White Walkers eventually claim them for their own army. They arrive at Hardhome and negotiate with the villagers, but soon after come under attack. After the Battle of Hardhome between the living and the dead, Jon, his team, and what's left of the free folk community manage to escape and make their way back to the Wall, where Jon allows the free folk to pass through and give them land to build on. This mission to Hardhome is our demonstration of the sixth element, the descent into the underworld. Our hero is sent on a conquest of death where he quite literally fights a militia of death and reemerges still standing. Many of the stories depict the hero undergoing a literal conquest of death, and this is one example of such, just as Heracles entered the underworld to retrieve Cerberus for his final labor. This isn't the first or even the last time Jon encounters death, in both the sense of the White Walkers and of his own mortality. Jon allowing the free folk to pass into Westeros angers his men, as there has been a long-standing feud between these groups for generations. This directly results in the betrayal of his men, who kill him in the night, marking him a traitor of the Night's Watch. After making impossible decisions, our hero is scapegoated, as we know that Jon is doing a selfless thing by preserving life to the best of his ability, only to lose his own life at the hands of those he trusted. At this point, it seems all is lost. Our hero has fallen and our lowest point is reached. But our hero's journey is far from over, as he must undergo a rebirth, a transformative moment that brings about a symbolic cleansing. Jon is resurrected by Melisandre, a priestess of her lore, with the power to renew life with the help of those who were still loyal to him. Jon responds to this by hanging the murderers and leaving the Night's Watch, hereby cleansed of his oath to serve the Wall until death. With renewed purpose, he joins the evolving war in the south over the Iron Throne, managing to gain enough support to win back his father's castle from the Boltons in the Battle of the Bastards. It is after this battle that Jon Snow is proclaimed King of the North by the Northern men. This elevates Jon to a status that he always dreamed of but never thought possible. Remember, when he was growing up in Winterfell, he dreamed of being a true-born son of his father instead of a bastard. Having endured countless trials and gained profound wisdom, he ascends to apotheosis, crowned at last with a kingly title. There's more for Jon yet. He discovers his true identity as a Targaryen and the rightful heir to the Iron Throne through the divine help of his brother Bran. While this reveal does not signal the end of Jon's part in the story, his final stage of the heroic journey has completed. Jon's story actually takes a lot more drastic turns when he discovers his identity, leading him to reluctantly kill a mad tyrant whom he loved for the greater good, resulting in his exile back to the Wall, where he returns to life beyond the Wall with his people. While Jon's story doesn't have the happiest ending, his final actions reflect the very essence of what it is to be a hero. To bear the weight of duty and honor without glory, even when it costs everything, and to lead not for power, but for the people and for life itself. Jon Snow's heroic journey in Game of Thrones mirrors the classic story arc told throughout the ages of time but with uniquely somber, nuanced elements. From a marginalized bastard to a leader and peacekeeper to an enlightened ruler, Jon's path is not defined by glory or material rewards, but by sacrifice and a moral belief that all life is precious in the face of death. While his choices may be unfavorable to those around him, they revolve around a central theme of heroism, selflessness, and doing what's right. In the end, Jon emerges not as a ruler, but as a man who has transcended death and power, finding what it truly means to be the sword in the darkness, the watcher on the walls, and the shield that guards the realms of men. Thank you.